I am so very honored and excited to introduce our keynote speaker today, Hannah Gordon, Chief Administrative Officer and General Counsel of the San Francisco 49ers. Hannah is a Bay Area native who grew up in Oakland and attended Stanford Law School. She is a former board member of the Silicon Valley Leadership Group Foundation, among other nonprofit organizations. Named by NFL.com as one of the most influential women in football, Hannah advises on all legal issues involving both the football team and Levi's Stadium, and leads the ESPN Humanitarian Team of the Year winning Community Impact Division, which includes the 49ers Foundation's co-ed youth football programs and STEAM education program, which serve tens of thousands of Bay Area youth each year. Hannah is a presidential leadership scholar, a sports business journal 40 Under 40 and Game Changer, the Athletic NFL 40 Under 40, Silicon Valley Business Journal's 40 Under 40, 100 Women of Influence, Corporate Council Diversity Champion, ICA Cristo Rey Leader in Mission, and Pure Wow's 20 in 20 list, honoring 20 up-and-coming leaders working to better our world. She is author of Season of Change, The Competitor's Playbook for Joy on the Path to Victory, that has been featured by Good Morning America. And so we are so very pleased to welcome Hannah this afternoon to speak to all of us. Thank you, Hannah.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Karen, for that lovely introduction. Oh, I'm so tall. We're going to need to move this up here. Okay. Can you guys hear me? Everywhere? Good. All right. So Karen spoke a little bit about why you guys invited me. I'm the Chief Legal and Administrative Officer of your hometown 49ers. How many 49ers fans do I have in the house? Okay, some. Good. I may have been invited because the 49ers have invested millions of dollars over the last 5 years in social justice grants, including to the National Center for Youth Law. And last year we announced a 10-year extension of those grants for $5 million for work in the criminal side of legal justice reform. Perhaps they invited me because I'm a graduate of the school right down the street, Stanford Law School. And maybe they knew that I taught street law at San Mateo County Juvenile Hall while in law school. Do I have any other Stanford Law grads in the house? Woo! Okay, I like it. I don't think, though, that they know why I said yes to this invitation. And the reason I said yes is because my mother, Pat Kernahan, was actually a staff attorney for the San Mateo County Legal Aid Society 4 decades ago. Yes, so staff lawyers, I was like in spirit. Last week, my mom texted me the New Yorker cartoon. It was widely circulating. Somebody might have texted it to you too, that said, "For Mother's Day, my mom would like the activism of her youth not to be for nothing." It was not for nothing. In response, I shared the Coretta Scott King quote, "Struggle is a never-ending process. Freedom is never really won. You earn it and win it in every generation." The work done by this great organization was necessary 40 years ago when she was working here, and it is necessary today. The need is not a reflection of any defeat, but an exemplar of Coretta Scott King's point. If the work is not funded, the result is not stasis, but a slide into greater inequities and injustices. Not for nothing. My mother spent her career in public service. She went on to work for the city of Oakland, spending the last decade of her career representing the people of District 2 as their council member. Even in retirement, she is an active citizen, recently serving on the Reimagining Justice Coalition for Oakland. These are the kinds of alumni that the San Mateo County Legal Aid Society produces. Whether working for a paycheck, volunteering her time, or working in the home, my mom instilled in my sister and me, I almost said my sister and then I remembered that she constantly corrects my grammar and rewrote it as I was writing, that it is our duty to make the world better and not worse. Now, some of you in this room, the ones who didn't clap when I asked if you're 49ers fans, you might be like my mom and be more interested in discussing public transit shelters with my sister, the transportation planner, than football with me. When I took my mom to a game, she asked in the first quarter, "When will this be over?" Sports might seem frivolous to you, but our worlds intersect more than you might think. Not for nothing. When I look back over a decade at the 49ers, I think of watching the steel beams go up to erect Levi's Stadium and watching the confetti fall down over the NFC Championship. But what has been most meaningful in my career are the times that I get to wield the sword and the shield of being a lawyer, that which we all have the privilege of, in service of others. In other words, getting to be a little more like the superheroes who volunteer or are staff attorneys at the Legal Aid Society. To answer the call, "Hannah, can my landlord raise the rent this much?" from our employees, whether players or not. "My son got a DUI. My husband is leaving. My father is dying. My sister was beat up by her boyfriend." Many of our most vulnerable moments in life have not only emotional but also legal consequences. These moments feel more overwhelming and confusing and can have very different outcomes if we don't have access to legal services. Not for nothing. You might assume that athletes have plenty of access, but due to a lot of factors, including structural racism, many players, employees, and their families have found themselves in a legal system that criminalizes poverty. And I recognize the Legal Aid Society is doing civil work, but I do want to give you just one example, that a young man came to see me because his mother had essentially been living off the grid for over a decade without stable employment or housing. And this happened because at a time that their family lost their home, she had applied for government benefits, allegedly at both the old address and the new address. As a result of not having good access to legal services at that time, there was a warrant for her arrest, and she lived in fear, not knowing what the real consequences of that would be, for over 10 years, essentially disappearing from society. If she'd had something like access to this Legal Aid Society to navigate her predicament, she could have resolved it in a couple of months, which is what happened after her son was able to get her legal services, not years. She ended up lucky. Her child happened to be so good at playing football and so smart that he ended up in the NFL and sought out resources as soon as he had access. But what about all those whose son or nephew or brother is not a star athlete? Our country is supposed to work for everyone, and that is where you come in. The activism of your youth or your life is not so much an act of altruism as patriotism. We are a nation of laws, and we can only be as strong as our legal system. Ours is built on an adversarial model. There are two sides, plaintiff and defendant, two counterparties to a transaction. Every American deserves caring, competent counsel to advise and guide them, not just for their benefit, but for the benefit of all of us, because the model only works when both sides have adequate representation. So I come here today to say thank you. May you continue to struggle for your clients and by extension for our community and our country. May you continue to win freedom for this generation. No matter the setback, it is not for nothing. Thank you.